Awesome, Travis. So, you know, something that we see a lot, especially on social media, is everybody loves to talk about the wins, to talk about the highlight reel, to talk about whatever they feel is going to be able to, persuade their audience. And something we don't see a lot is we don't see a lot of people talking about their failures, the times where things didn't work, all of the time it took them to be able to put the reps in to get to where they are today. So I would love to just kind of, poke and prod and kind of see where your thoughts are on this. And just if you'd be able to just kind of enlighten people on, potentially a time where things didn't go exactly to plan, where we would call it a quote unquote, a failure in the eyes of ourselves as an entrepreneur and a marketer. And I'd love to just kind of share that with everyone.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I think it's, by the nature of marketing, you only want to talk about your best things and these big promises and like, this testimonial and that social proof. But yeah, the reality is, most marketers that I've run into, and I can certainly speak for myself, is that there's been some failures along the way. And it's like in those failures is actually where you end up learning the most. And you have some big breakthroughs that can lead to some pretty interesting and positive results. So, I mean, I think the biggest one, or, I haven't had a ton of failures. I've had times where I probably haven't performed as high as I wanted it to go, but there still would have been considered, successes, right? But there has been one, I think in particular, that I would definitely deem a failure or a learning experience, as my personal development friends would say. So just, yeah, I was asked to do a launch, or I was hired to do a launch for a friend of mine, and he had an amazing product. He had already sold millions of dollars worth of product, and he wanted to do a new launch for like the rebirth of this product. And so he hired me to do it. And the goal was to do $400,000 in sales. Like that was the goal. And it wasn't like, that wasn't a made up number. That was a legit number based on the numbers he had done previously. So it wasn't one of these like ridiculous situations where the expectation was just too high. So the goal was $400,000. And, but I had never, at this point in time, I had never done a lot of low ticket or like lower ticket marketing, right? And so at that time, what he wanted to do, I didn't really have the skill set to do, but I didn't know I didn't have the skill set to do per se. So I went in trying to sell this low ticket item the way that I wanted to sell, or the way that I was selling high ticket items through email. And when he took a look at some of my proposals and my strategies that I wanted to conduct for the launch, he wanted to go in a different direction, more towards what he had done before in the past, which is more like of a low ticket style. So the issue was that this particular product, it appealed to so many different types of people, right? It was in the fitness niche, and anybody who, you could be obese and want it, and you can be running Ironmans every single weekend, or actually a professional athlete and still want it. Like it encompassed so much. And so he had one giant list, and so we just marketed it. And so I did your typical launch where we had our emails, and we had the scarcity, and we had the urgency, and we had the story, we had all the different marketing elements that you're supposed to have in place. We had them all in place. But the result was, I think I just grazed $40,000 in sales for it. And so, I mean, that's a fail, like a huge one, right? We didn't even get close to 400K. And I felt so terrible about it, actually, because this was, I was on a retainer with this client, and I was getting paid $10,000 a month to be on retainer with him. And this was my first project on my retainer. And so I felt so terrible and embarrassed. I actually gave him the 10K back, and we ended up just saying, hey, you know what, obviously this isn't working with my skills and what it is that you wanted to do. It just it wasn't lined up. And so I was really embarrassed about it. It still irks me to this day, actually. It's still one of those things. I hope he listens to this one day and I have the chance to make it right somehow. But anyways, I did learn a very valuable lesson, like a very valuable lesson for that time. So I didn't walk away with nothing. I didn't walk away empty-handed. At the time, I thought I did, but it ended up not being so. So what I realized was that when I was trying to sell this tool to everybody, it didn't connect with anyone. Like it wasn't connecting with anyone's present pain. right? And so 3 weeks later, Garrett J. White hires me. Oh, I think my connection is a little off here. I'm not sure. Am I buzzing out or no?
You're back now. Yeah.
Okay, I'm back now. Okay, sorry about that. No, but so 3 weeks later, Garrett J. White hires me for Wake Up Warrior. He hires me to do this launch for one of his campaigns. I'm coming off this loss. I'm a little bit embarrassed. My confidence is kind of shaky. So I'm extra focused. I'm extra dialed in when Garrett hires me to do his launch because I want the same thing to happen. So what I did was Garrett has, if you're not familiar with his offers, he has high ticket offers, and he is in the personal development niche, and he helps, at the time, he helped married businessmen have it all, right? Very, like, you talk about a massive, big idea, a message that is going to appeal to a whole large group of individuals, right? Have it all is I mean, right, it's all relative to the person who's listening to it. So I knew I needed to do something different than just speak to have it all, to speak to just to the big idea and the big promises of doing this and that, right? So what I did was I went and I looked at all of his applications that he had ever had. Like, these are thousands of applications. I obviously didn't get through all of them, but I looked through as many as I could. And unscientifically, I was just keeping track of all the different pain points that people were expressing in their applications to work with them. And then I was just kind of ranking those and seeing, like, okay, this, it's that, this is that. It's like people were having a hard time in their marriage, people were having a hard time with their productivity, people, just all over the place. And so what I did was I took all those things and I had a campaign before I launched it. So the way I think of it now is like it was a reverse application funnel, where what I wanted to do is I wanted to figure out a way I can gather the information most salespeople want on an application. I wanted to gather that information before I launched it so I could have more specific emails that spoke to the people that were revealing their most present pain. Because as we know, if you understand what somebody wants and you understand what they're going through and you have a solution that can solve it, all you need to know is that, so that you can pin it up together so that they actually want it. And as salespeople understand this, but there's no reason why we can't use the same principle in marketing, right? So I took that and I thought of it like a reverse application, and I sent emails that were specifically to get them to engage and, click on buttons and links and take action that would tell me what it is that they want. And then based off that, then I launched his offer, and I had different emails go out to different people based on their pain points, and we ran it for 10 days. And the result, we got right under $1 million. And this was for a $5,000 offer, and there was no sales page that it went to. And this was for an offer he had never even done before. He had never even mentioned doing this thing. So we sold a brand new offer, unproven in an expertise that he had never even really expressed to his audience, and we almost got $1 million. And it's not because I became a better writer between those 3 weeks from my fail to that. It was because I was able to simply, from a strategy standpoint, I was able to gather intel, and I just matched the message to people's present pain, and so I could show them how the offer was connected and can solve that present pain, as opposed to just telling them how great the offer was and how grandiose the idea is, and just hammer home all the stereotypical urgency, scarcity things. There were still those elements in the campaign, but that wasn't what did the selling. What did the selling was me showcasing, demonstrating how the offer was going to solve their present pain. And that was the difference right there. That changed the game from a fail, $40,000 in sales, to almost $1 million in sales, just that alone.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And when you said it's kind of what salespeople are already doing, and it's so true, especially for high ticket offers, a sales rep is looking at an application, they see what the person filled out, and then they tailor how they present how this thing is going to help this person based on that information. So exactly. You essentially reviewed a bunch of applications that Garrett had already received, identified a bunch of these things, ran a campaign to effectively just like tag and segment the audience. Is that kind of what the approach was there?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And then it was running a campaign, but as opposed to just every email being a broadcast to the entire list, it was just like laser focused with specificity to this person is looking at growing their business. This person is looking at getting more fit. This person is looking at XYZ, speaking directly to what these people are feeling.
Yep, absolutely. And the thing is, it's not like you have to have an entirely different campaign for them. There's certain emails that speak to everybody, right? Because maybe it doesn't have to do with the offer itself. So it's not like I had to have a 10-day sequence for each pain point. Inside the 10-day sequence, there might be 3 emails total that had to be custom for that segment, right? But the majority of them could still go out. But the key was that there was a 3, and those 3 were around the offer, which is obviously the most important part, right? So those 3 emails were around the offer and framing the offer and going into the details around the offer. So that was custom to the segmentation based on their pain, but everything else was almost exactly the same. So it didn't require a ton of extra work, just a little bit more on the front end. And it just changes the way you think about it. Like, again, if you think about these things in terms of principles in psychology, if it's proven and it obviously works in a sales structure, this is a proven practice, right? You gather the information from the application so that, like you said, so that you can tailor the conversation to increase the conversion. Because if you were to talk to somebody in sales, they'd say, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to this person. I need to figure out what is it that they want. I need to know their pain so I can explain how this offer. Well, if that's the case, which it is, how much more powerful can our marketing be if we just reverse that and we gather that information before we market it? And then now you increase the convert. Now your marketing becomes exponentially more powerful just by thinking about it differently through strategy, not about writing the most beautiful words, not about, having the best branding. It's just taking that application and flipping it around and just using the tools and software that we have at our disposal now in this modern marketing age, and just letting the psychology work instead of having to be this A-list copywriter. I think it's outperforming what I know a lot of A-list copywriters are doing right now too. So, and it makes the job of the marketer and whoever's in charge of doing the emails, it makes their job easier because it doesn't require as much, you don't have, again, it takes the pressure off of writing the perfect email.
Well, and you think you're paying a sales rep 20 to 30% commission on their sales, and you're able to sell a $5,000 offer without needing to go, you could take that $20,000-$30,000 and you could put that into hiring a copywriter if you wanted to, and you didn't want to do that yourself. But Absolutely. What I really like about it is the fact that the list doesn't already need to be segmented. Most people have a fairly good idea about some of the pain points, but a lot of stuff we're just making assumptions based on these things. Being able to send people different information, different links to click on, allowing them to essentially take that action and okay, they watched this video, I know that they're interested in this. It's not rocket science. It doesn't require this super high level technical skill to be able to do this. And once you have those people tagged and the top symptoms and top present pains that they're feeling, now you can simply just customize your campaign. Or like you said, it's not a completely different campaign. It's just a few pieces of a campaign that are going to be tailored to those specific people. And I love the simplicity in that. You can get super specific without this. You don't need to be like a data analyst to be able to execute this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And, I think one thing, like a great example, actually, just recently, this happened to me. I have an 11-year-old son, he plays quarterback, and, he's 11, so he's still developing. And as you're developing as in any discipline as a kid, right, you have these technique problems, things that you're doing wrong, right? And so I subscribe to certain quarterback gurus who kind of specialize in this stuff. And the majority of them, again, they have these big ideas, and I get attracted to them from their big ideas. Like, hey, this is my ultimate quarterback training system, or this is like, hey, have the best quarterback in your district, or whatever it is, right? They're these big ideas, okay? And most of these QB gurus all market in the same type of way, which is very similar to how these high ticket people do as well, right? These high ticket entrepreneurs, it's the same thing, right? Big ideas, pull them in. Okay, so they pulled me in. But then I'm not going to pull my credit card out and buy anything because, again, it's not specific. I'm not going to spend a bunch of money on like the ultimate quarterback system because I'm more so concerned because I'm seeing my son overthrow his receivers. He's overthrowing his receivers. So he has this accuracy issue right now. So I'm like, how do I fix this? And everybody's just telling me about how amazing the quarterback system is, right? Well, this one guy comes along, I get an email, and literally the title of his email is like, if your son is missing his receivers high. So I'm like, oh, that's literally what my problem is. Like, that's literally what it is. Then I open up the email. There's a link, and it's just like, hey, if he's missing high on his throws, watch this video. It might help. So I click the video, I watch the video. It just shows this one little thing. He's like, hey, he might be overstriding. So change his stride up. Okay. So I go down and I talk to my son and we work together. We change his stride up. We just followed the advice on the video. All of a sudden he's throwing balls that like right on target. And now I'm reaching out to the guy. He doesn't even have a follow-up sequence. He doesn't have anything in place. He just has that one email. Now I'm literally emailing him back saying like, how can we work together? Can you work with my son online? He didn't even have an offer, right? But he solved a very, very, very specific pain. So now let's say he didn't even have like a how to get your son to throw accurate program. Let's say he still had the ultimate QB training program. Well, the fact that he demonstrated to solve one of my very specific present pains, all he has to do is say, yeah, we work on that inside of my system. Now I want a system.
Yeah.
So that's the power. I don't know if he knew what he was doing or if he did it on accident or whatever, who knows? Maybe he's watched like some of our videos, I don't know. But that's, even in real time, that's what hooked me, that's what drew me in. And now you will have people reaching out literally without even having sales pages, no offers, no VSLs, no nothing. And people are going to reach out and be like, how can I give you my money to solve my problem even more? Mm-hmm. That's the power of being able to have a reverse application mindset. How can I front load pain points and give your leads applicable content that demonstrates your expertise and actually lets people experience a little bit of a result before you ever ask them to invest in whatever it is that you have to offer.
Yeah. And I think even if I reflect back on the way that I purchase right now, when I'm looking at anything inside the business and entrepreneurial space, I'm no longer interested in programs that are similar to things I've done before. So if I look at somebody that's trying to tell me how to scale my business, I've been there, done that. I've been in more masterminds than I can think of. I know the playbook. You're going to try and talk to me about developing a client avatar and then, going through my social media and my content strategy. I'm not looking for that because I've done that before. But what hits me is when I see an ad pop up and it is speaking to that one specific thing that I'm looking to do right now. I don't want to invest in your entire thing right now because that's not where I am. It might appeal to someone, but the ability to create a plethora, like a myriad of content, when you just think of like all the actual things that what you do solves, you now have this like arsenal of emails you can write, pieces of content you can create, podcasts you can record. And they're all just going to start to like speak to this little segment of your audience, this little segment of your audience. And I know like when I'm looking to purchase, because I'm not just getting started, that's what speaks to me now.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% spot on there. And I think what happens is with a lot of people in the marketing space is it's like there's mantras or there's like this bumper sticker speak, right? Where it's like, hey, experts get paid more than jack of all trades, and you got to niche down, and this. So it's like in some ways, marketing understands this to a certain percent, right? So right now, I think it's very common. Most people know like you have to be an expert, but they haven't applied that, and they know why, because knee doctors get paid more than general practitioners, right? Everybody has understood these concepts, but they understand them in terms of who they are as the expert. Most people stop at that in terms of who they are. they don't look at it in terms of their offer as well. Your offer can't be a jack of all trades as well. Your offer has to be specific. Your offer has to be an expert in something, right? And so the psychology, the principle doesn't just end with us as the expert. It trickles down into our offers. And it's scary for a lot of people, because even when people agree with that, like I've told this to people and people will agree, right? They're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But when, including my clients, right? But when like rubber meets the road and it's like, it's time to write ads or it's time to write emails, what ends up happening to everybody is they're like, oh, but I work with so many other people though. And it gets a little bit scary, because you're like, well, I don't want to like push that person away, or I don't want to like, there's all these different people and they all need it so bad. And it's great that people feel that way because they have a product that can solve problems, and it's great. We need more experts that are that passionate about what they do and that they know that it solves those problems. It's great. Just keep that passion, right? The key is you don't have to, when you do this properly, you don't have to niche your offer down to one present pain. That's the whole point of email marketing. The whole point of email marketing for high ticket offers is to be able to tag and segment so that you can continue the conversation in a relevant fashion that's relevant to their specific and present pain. So that way you don't have to, you can still have your big idea, your big purpose. You don't even have to change your webinar. If you love your webinar, your little 5-6 webinar, whatever it is that you do, awesome, keep that, right? But just build up your back end so that your back end captures all the people. Because like you said, there's going to be people that the big idea is enough for them to buy. The big promise, you're still going to get people. That's why, you could have a high ticket coaching business and you're going to make sales, but it's probably going to be a turbulent experience where you're going to have some months high and a few months low when you're constantly chasing and having to fix this and do that. But the reason why is because it's not a system that can consistently speak to present pain on the back end. Because the reality is it's really hard to speak to all of the present pains inside of one webinar. So yeah, it is difficult. It is this game of, this like give or take or cat and mouse where you're like, oh, I understand the concept. I understand the marketing principle of having to be able to solve people's present pain, but I don't know how to actually put it in practice because I don't have time in my webinar to speak to everything. Right. So that's what the email's for. Have a tagging system, have a way to capture people's present pain. And there's different ways to do it. It's not always a survey, right? There's different styles of surveys. There's different ways you can get this information from people based on what they click, based on how long they watch something or whatever it is, right? Even if they just reply to a certain email, there's several ways in that client journey where you can figure out what they want. And then you just have to have your sales sequences loaded and ready to go so you can present your offer in a very specific manner.
Yeah, and I think what I really like about what you just said is this isn't necessarily that people coming into this need to change everything that they're doing on the front end. So like you said, they don't necessarily need to change what they're offering or change the program that they're running. They might not be able to speak to all of these things inside of their webinar. If you're looking to apply this, this could simply be something that when you're speaking to it on the back end through your email marketing, it just comes down to how you're positioning, how you're speaking about it. You're speaking about it, like you said, so it's relevant to each type of person that's now come in. So yes, maybe like the perfect is to have a webinar that was speaking to this, but we know that we're not trying to achieve perfection in everything that we do. So you don't even need to change what you're doing on the front end to be able to apply this. You can take this email, this strategy, implement it on the back end without having to change anything that you're doing on the front end, and be able to create a mass amount of leverage inside of the sales you're generating.
Yes. Yeah. It's very similar to fishing. So like in fishing, what happens a lot of times is, if you want to catch a certain type of fish, like the fishermen will chum the water, right? So they will actually put bait out in the water and just kind of spread it all over the place. And they want to see what fish come around, right? So they can pull fish in right under their boat, right? And the thing is they don't know exactly what the fish are going to bite on though. They know that that's going to attract them so they can fill their area, their environment up with all the fish that they want to catch, which is like what a webinar does and what typical lead magnets do. It's like it's general enough that it's going to draw people's attention and it can get them to opt in. But if you don't change that generality into something specific, just like if a fisherman doesn't actually put something on the hook that the fish want to bite, it doesn't matter that the fish are right there. You can put You can have them right under your boat, and you can put a hook in the water, and there might not be the bait that they want, so they will swim right past it. So essentially what you want to do is you want to be able to chum the water and know what they're biting on, know what they want. So if a fisherman knows exactly what, if they chum the water, here come the fish, and they're like, I know that all these fish want this bait. Now you got a winner. Now you just got to drop the bait in the water. And it just depends on the type of fish that, you're fishing for. So it's the same thing with our marketing funnels. It's our webinars and our lead magnets grab and attract an audience. And we know that we just can't put any old hook down there. It's great that we have them now in our audience, but we just can't throw a hook in the water and expect to catch them. Yeah, sure, we want to snag a couple, but if I want to consistently and predictably do that, if I know what they're biting on, I'm going to be able to catch fish. I'll never have to starve.
Yeah.
So our marketing funnels are no different. The same principles and philosophies and strategies are the exact same. And if we think of it like that, then it will lead you to ask the right questions and be willing to put in just a little bit of work to build the systems out so that you can capture this information so that you can follow up properly.
And then, not even talking about even further beyond this one campaign, but going into additional things. Once you know, and you start actually paying attention to the results you're seeing, and you see, hey, when I throw this bait on my hook, I'm catching more fish than these 3 other baits. Well, what can you now do with that information? It's something that as you start to zoom out, because of the specificity and making things relevant, you start to see what resonates with more people, what resonates more, what sells more out of all of that. And that gives you so much knowledge that a lot of people are not even tapping into, or a lot of people are underestimating and completely missing when you start to think about implementing a strategy like this.
Yes. And that's right now, what you're talking about right now is that's where the biggest opportunity is, because what ends up happening is that in order to think like this, in order to really dial into your clients and have like a present pain focused funnel, you have to have empathy. Like you have to be more focused on your clients and potential clients than you are on yourself and your own offers. Right. And so most entrepreneurs aren't willing to, it's not like it's hard work, right? It's not like it's an insane amount of work that you have to do. It's just a different way of thinking. And for whatever reason, a lot of entrepreneurs they love what they do. And in order for them to become an expert in what they do, they have to have been obsessed with whatever that practice or discipline is, right? And so it makes sense why people get so caught up in like their offer, what they're an expert at, right? Very them focused. And then their funnels reflect that too, because their offer is positioned in that. Their webinar is positioned like that. Their funnels are positioned like that. It's just all about them, right? And again, this isn't anything new. People who do this know not to do this, and they still fall into the trap because it's their own patterns, right? So that's why it's important to follow a system, so that if you follow a system, you don't have to undo anything of your own. You're just following a system, right? Can override like your own biases and your own consciousness. So, but that's where the opportunity is, because most people don't do that. And when people are in a high ticket is a different space, because to spend a lot of money, certain psychological triggers have to be set off, and there has to be specific and present pain that is clearly solved by your product, service, or program. And right now, nobody's doing that. Nobody's going to be that specific. And that's why high ticket programs and coaches, they have a hard time scaling their business. A lot of people get stuck at the same numbers, and not just the same numbers, but the same way of doing business in terms of kind of the chaos and chasing this and chasing that. And just like, there's nothing organized in their funnel. And like, even though they have a funnel, half their sales are being made in different ways on different platforms. They can't track anything because their funnels don't have all these things in place. So once you understand this and start playing the game according to client focused funnel, right, then a lot of those things start falling into place, and you can have predictability, sustainability, and you only have to do a lot of this stuff one time. That's the other thing. It's like these are automations we're talking about. So these are These are systems you do once,
Yeah.
and then they work for, potentially years.
Yeah, it's the dream. Predictable, sustainable system that is evergreen, that is able to sell high ticket offers without sales reps. That's everyone's dream right there. No,
Yes.
that's awesome. Hopefully if your client from that you had the flop with the first time is listening, and you can see the progress that's been made and the systems that are in place now to potentially get a do-over in the future, that'd be pretty cool.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I appreciate just this time and just being able to rap about this stuff. We can go for hours. Like, we're just now skimming some of the stuff that's just all pent up here that I'm trying to get out. So I appreciate the opportunity to get it out.
Yeah, awesome. Happy to jam with you, man.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Dope.
Cool, man.